Hey, it's Jess. Welcome back. I have finally decided to go through my TBR jar and pick out all of the slips of paper for books that I have read so that I can put them into my red jar, which is right here. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Before we start with that, I do have a couple books that I need to add to my TBR jar, so let me get those. On Kindle Unlimited, I just downloaded Intercepts by someone, TJ something. T something. I can't remember, but I just downloaded it. It's like a horror sci-fi book, so we'll add this one in there. I also downloaded Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. I have read All the Sinners Bleed by him, but I haven't read this one, and since it was on Kindle Unlimited, I've heard a lot of things about it, so I went ahead and downloaded it, so we'll put that one in there. Also, I am soft DNFing Plain Bad Heroines. A soft DNF means I'm not going to completely never finish this book, but I started it in September, August. I started it a while ago and I listened halfway through to the audiobook and I was really enjoying it, but okay, I wasn't really enjoying it. I was enjoying it enough, but it's a 20-hour audiobook and I still have 10 hours left. And I took a break to read some other stuff, but I've downloaded it from my library twice since then, the audiobook, and haven't listened to it once. So it is time to put this back in the jar and back on the shelf for now. Again, it's not that I'm never going to read it. I don't want to read it right now. And life is too short to read books that you don't want to read. So this is going back on the shelf and eventually I'll get back to it and finish it. Just this isn't the right time. Now I have you can't really see, a whole handful of slips. I just dropped one. A whole handful of slips from my TBR jar that I have read since I put them in there, but they're ones that I didn't pull for a prompt. And so they're still in here. So I'm going to go through those and let you know what I've read and clean out the TBR jar. So Station 11, I read this for Summerween for a book with the night sky on the cover. This is a sci-fi book about the world after a pandemic. And so you do dual timelines where some of it's the world before the epidemic happens and then you're following a group after the pandemic 20 years later in the US where there's no power or life as we know it has completely changed. I listened to that one as an audiobook, really, really enjoyed that one. Highly recommend it as an audiobook. I thought it was narrated wonderfully. Magic Hour, I read this in October. I just talked about it in my last wrap up. I have my TBR jar, or my red jar right here, so that's where I'm putting these. Anyway, Magic Hour by Kristen Hanna. I read that last month. It was a 5-star read for me in October. It is about a small town in the Pacific Northwest. One day, a 6-year-old girl walks out of the woods with a wolf pup. The police chief calls her sister, who is a child psychologist, to come and help this child and try to figure out who she is and where she came from. And then it just turns into kind of a cozy, not cozy, but it's like a thriller, but not spooky thrilling. It's a mystery because you want to know about this girl. Really, really, really liked that one. Everyone Here is Lying. Also read this last month. Did not like that. Everyone Here is Lying by Sherry LaPina. It looks like I already returned it to the library because that's how much I don't care about it. You are following a family whose daughter has gone missing. The last person to see her alive was her father. And so obviously the media and the family think that the father is the one who did something to this girl. But so you're following this neighborhood drama trying to figure out where she went. Mediocre. Didn't particularly care for that one. The Laws of the Skies. Also read this in October. This is is by Gregoire Courtois, I think. I can't remember how to say his name. I apologize. Again, I just talked about this in my last wrap up. This is basically Lord of the Flies with 6-year-olds. A group of children, a class of children, go into the woods. The 3 adults that are with them, something happens to each of them, and then slowly the children start dying. This was very bleak, but a wonderful audiobook and something different than I had read before. I really liked that one. The next one is Gone to See the Riverman. I read that in August, I think, for the Buzzword Readathon. It's by Christopher Triana. You're following Lori. She has started like a pen pal relationship with a serial killer. He asks her to go to his rundown cabin by the river to get a key, and while she is there, he wants her to continue on down the river to see the Riverman. Lori has to take her older sister, Abby. Abby is mentally disabled, and so she has to take care of her. And so you learn about their past, and you learn kind of Lori's feelings about having to take care of her older sister. And it's extreme horror in that there are some pretty gruesome scenes, but it's not like back to back to back to back gruesome scenes. But there are some graphic scenes in there and some gross scenes, but and some of the subjects are taboo. But overall, I know a lot of people really like that book. That was kind of just, again, mediocre for me. I think I gave it like a 3 or a 3.5. I don't know. That one just, it wasn't for me. The next one is The Deep. I read this in September, I believe. The Deep by Nick Cutter. I really enjoyed this book. You are in a world where there is a disease called the Gets that is uncured. There's no cure for it. And basically, like, once you get it, you slowly start forgetting things. And you start by forgetting, like, where'd I put my keys? You know, oh, I forgot I had that appointment next week. And then it's, who are you? Where am I? And then your body forgets that it has to function. So your heart forgets it has to beat. Your lungs forget they have to breathe. And so eventually you wither away. They think there is a cure, and the scientist who has discovered this cure is 8 miles under the surface of the Pacific Ocean. So you are following Lucas. He goes down under the ocean to see his brother Clayton. And while you're down there, you discover that maybe being 8 miles under the surface of the ocean in an isolated, like, station isn't great. Creepy stuff happens. Body horror. There is some animal horror in this. Nick Cutter tends to do that. So, trigger warning for that if that's not something that you like. It's not a lot, but there are some instances of, like, animal body horror. But again, really liked that one. The next one is No One Rides for Free by Judith Sonnet. I also read that for Summerween for a book with 5 words in the title. This was a short book, thankfully. Very extreme horror, very gross, very depraved, very gross. A lot of people really liked it. Pretty sure I gave it like a 3 or a 3.5. Not because it's extreme horror. I do read extreme horror, kind of like with the other book I talked about. It's just, it didn't do it for me. In this book, you are following a mother. She is taking her 2 children back to college for the semester. She goes into the gas station to pay for gas, and when she comes out, there is a strange man in her van that has taken her family hostage, and he tells her to drive, and so she does, and he makes them do, like, all this gross, depraved stuff. Definite trigger warnings. Definitely extreme horror. Again, not for me, but I know a lot of other people enjoy that one. The next one, Home is Where the Bodies Are. A lot of these have been very mediocre books for me. Home is Where the Bodies Are is by Geneva Rose. You are following 3 estranged siblings. Their mother has just passed away 7 years ago. Their father ran off. They have not heard from him since then. One day when the siblings are going through their mother's things, they pull out a box of home movies, and one of the movies that they watch at the end is footage of their parents with the body of a young girl who, 15, 20 years ago went missing, and no one knew what happened to her, and then her parents are on this tape with her. They can't tell if she's dead. They don't know what happened to her, and so they're like, what... Did they kill this girl? Did they hide it? Are they hiding her? What is going on? They don't know the situation. So it's a lot of family drama. And then they're trying to figure out what role their parents played in the disappearance and abduction of this young girl. Again, very mediocre. The writing was pretty simplistic. I didn't really care for the characters. I read this one because it was a pick for my book club. So, and it is a book that I had owned. I picked it up for my birthday. And yeah, I've read it. I still own it, but that's one that I wouldn't necessarily care about getting rid of that one, and I wouldn't read it again. The next book is The Mountain Under the Sea by Ray Naylor. I read this in, I think, September. It's a book that I had heard about from my brother. You are following a scientist who studies cephalopods and octopi. A company has asked her to come collaborate with them because they found this species of octopi, and so they want her to like help research them. And also, this is in a world where AI and like cyborgs and androids have they take on a lot of the jobs. And there's even like a religious sect of robot monks where it's like a robot body, but a monk's brain has been and memories have been like downloaded into the monk. So it's a lot about like what makes a human a human. These octopi have like created their own language so that they can communicate with humans, but also with other octopi in their species. And so it's a very philosophical. Like, what makes you a human? Is it because you have thoughts and memories? Because these android monks also have thoughts and memories, and but they're like robot bodies. So are they human? Are they not? The octopi can, have relationships and communicate with people outside of their, like with others. So does that make them a human? Does it not? Anyway, I gave it a 4-star. I really, really liked it. I listened to it as an audiobook. It was a really good audiobook, but it was also kind of confusing. And I listened to it kind of in chunks, so it was hard for me to get the whole story. But overall, I really liked that one as well. We have 5 left. Okay. The next one, The Dark Half by Stephen King. I read that this summer because I found it at the library. In this, you are following writer Thad Beaumont. He has created an alternate identity pen name named George Stark. And Thad's books are not selling well. George Stark's books are bestsellers. Someone finds out his secret, because in the 80s, like, you weren't allowed to publish. Anyway, in the 80s, they frowned upon publishing under pen names. And so he kills off George Stark and is only going to write as himself now. Well, then things start happening to the people in Thad and George's lives, and you find out that George might not be as fictional as Thad thought that he was. I enjoyed this book. It was different from other Stephen King books I've read. I think I gave this one a 4 too. It was just, it was 80s Stephen King horror, and I really liked it. It was a different kind of horror than some of the other stuff that he's written that I've read. And so I really enjoyed that one. Yes, looks like we have 3 left. Okay. Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist by Rachel Cohen and David Levithan. I read this one in July for the Buzzword Readathon because the words were like measurement. The theme was measurement words, so infinite is like a measurement. And also I had picked it up at the library sale. Did not like this one. Listened to it as an audiobook. Really, really, really enjoy the movie. Don't care for the book. Did not age well. You are following Nick and Nora. They are both high school students, I think, in New York. And one night, Nick's band is playing at a club in New York City. And after the set, he sees his ex-girlfriend in the club. So he turns to the girl next to him, which happens to be Nora, and says, "Will you pretend to be my girlfriend for 5 minutes?" And she says, "Sure." And then it's all about like the shenanigans they get up to. I don't know. Just skip the book, watch the movie because the movie is so much better. The next one is Night's Edge by Liz Curran. This is a book that I read in July for my book club. In this book, it is a world where a disease has been spread. It's called Sarah something virus. And so basically, like, when you get infected with this disease, you become a vampire, but they call them Sarahs. And so you're following this girl and her mother was turned into a vampire 10 years ago. And so it's dual timelines, like back in 2010. No, it wasn't 10 years ago. It was longer than that. 13, 14. Anyway, not the point. In 2010, her mother, Izzy, was turned into a vampire, but you also have like current day 2023, so I guess 13 years ago, where Mia and Izzy, like how they've lived and been on the run, because like if you are a Sarah, you're supposed to like turn yourself in and live in these containment facilities. And they didn't do that, obviously. And so, it's following them, and then Mia is discovering that she has always lived her life for other people, for her mother, to keep her mother safe and keep her mother alive. And now that she's gotten older, some things happen in her life that she's like, maybe I need to live my life for myself and stop worrying and caring about everyone else. I really liked this book, gave it a 5-star, read it really quickly. It's a horror book, but I wouldn't say that it's like super scary. It's kind of like literary horror. I don't think the rest of the book club enjoyed it as much as I did, but I really liked that one. And the last one we have is The Only Survivors. I'm not going to put this one in here yet because I just read this book for November's Buzzword Readathon. The prompt was the word only. So I have it right here. So I'm not going to put it in this jar yet because I need to do my November wrap up. I have finished this book. In this book, you are following 8 people as adults who 10 years ago were in a horrific like car accident with people from their school, and they were the only survivors. So every year they come back together to like on the anniversary of everything. So you're following like them 10 years later, but you find out what happened that night and the guilt they have with the things that they had to do. Not going to talk about it yet because November wrap up, but that's what this book is, The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. So again, not going to go in there. It's going to go back in this book so that I can talk about it when I do my wrap up at the end of November. So I have finally cleaned up my TBR jar. That makes me happy because if you didn't watch my TBR video for November, the first 3 slips that I picked out of this were books that I had already read. So I knew it was time to update it. And now I did. And so it goes back on the shelf. The jar's getting pretty full. You still can't see it very well, but it's getting more full than it was. So that's exciting. And now I have more room in here to add more books. Just kidding. Anyway, so now I want to know, have you read any of these books? What did you think? All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.